here in hostile Texas. It will involve the Green Berets, the Navy SEALs, and the 82nd Airborne. The Houston Chronicle is reporting that these soldiers will attempt to blend in with the population in an effort to test the effectiveness of their infiltration techniques. And residents will be asked to report suspicious activity during the exercise. This is very, very dangerous. This is how the Stasi got started, the secret police. And this is their game plan. They are going to set up undercover military cells in plain clothes to blend in with the civilian population. You're not going to recognize who they are because they're going to look like you. They're going to look like me. Might even have a beer with them. Now, this is directly involving unwitting members of the civilian population. 17 different cities here in Texas will see an Army presence during the exercise. And don't forget that they said that Texas, Utah, and even portions of Southern California were hostile territories. And the U.S. Army has failed to acknowledge or failed to address why we're being called hostile. But the exercise moves on, and it will take place this summer on the streets of America.
Jade Helm troops to operate undetected amongst civilian population. And, of course, the military people and the vets are not buying any of it. They're not stupid. You can read about how it's to get the hearts and minds and how to get the public used to working and the local police working with the military. I mean, everybody who's been in the military knows about the secret EOD program going on for 18 years. Their whole ordnance disposal, quote, the Army's going to show up to defuse a bomb. But then you get the internal agreements. It's for everything from warrant service to checkpoints with military personnel in nondescript blue jumpsuits, just like the Army Ranger called in and said they were wearing EPA blue jumpsuits. It's always blue or tan jumpsuits. And it might say EPA, it might say police, it might say Park Service. Training with the police, training with locals in plain clothes, quote, doing suspicious activities is to train the police to work with the military in covert operations and to condition the military to accept it and to condition the public to accept it. And then when we cover it and talk about it, they practice the PSYOP in real time, putting out disinformation. I can see the script from Army Times to military.com to Stars and Stripes to Bloomberg to Daily Beast to Vice to the Houston Chronicle, and no exaggeration today. You go search Jade Helm. There are now hundreds of articles, and in almost all of them, yours truly is being demonized. Jones, who's warned of an imminent takeover for decades, keeps claiming it's going to happen, but of course it never does. No, it never does. Checkpoints, TSA, open spying, highway dividers being put up nationwide, open manuals that the number one enemy is veterans and gun owners and Christians. I mean, come on. This is the PSYOP.
That's right. One big PSYOP, and I wanted to get Joe Biggs' take on all this. We got the Navy SEALs, the Green Berets, 82nd Airborne, all operating undercover within the civilian population. Why should we be concerned about that?
Well, the biggest concern is the fact that, like we've said, it is a PSYOP. It is a mission to help condition people to seeing the ground troops. But one of the scary things about it is, in Texas, a lot of people are going to be armed. Regardless of the fact if we hadn't spoken about this, this might not be as big as it is. We probably helped save lives by doing this, because just imagine being at home and hearing helicopters flying overhead and rounds being shot off, doors being kicked in. People are going to grab their guns and do the normal.
And they're already warning people that that's what they could expect.
Yeah.
They're going to say they're going to hear loud noises. They're going to see suspicious activity. They're asking civilians to report suspicious activity. And we're taking a lot of heat for this, just for reporting all this. You in particular, they're really attacking you, the Stars and Stripes, mainstream media, the U.S. Army, just for reporting on this. I want to read to you a little bit what the Houston Chronicle said. They characterize our response to this drill as an example of ultra right-wing fears of a government takeover in the Lone Star State. They say that we are completely overreacting to all this. What do you say to that?
Well, I don't think we're overreacting whatsoever. I think we are doing what we need to do to bring attention to this entire operation because, like I said, if people aren't warned, they're going to have that natural reaction when they hear something like that. So I think we've actually done a service to the people to help bring attention to this and expose the fact that this will be going on. This will actually help stop something from happening just so people can be aware of what's going on, don't you think?
Well, exactly. And what about how they say that these exercises were meant for overseas operations?
That's one thing that I think is the biggest load of crap in the whole thing, because we've seen time and time again all these different urban warfare training centers popping up. AP Hill, the one up in North Carolina that the Marine Corps uses, churches, soccer fields, all this stuff. I mean, it's a load of BS. You train in an area that you're going to fight over in your theater of operation, and these places look more and more like urban America. And now they're moving off of a government installation that we spend, quite frankly, millions of dollars on taxpayer money to build these installations for the soldiers to train and fight, or to train to go overseas for. Why do we now need to leave these government facilities that were spent and bought and paid for that? Why do we have to bring that into our backyards? Why do we need to work with the civilian population and local law enforcement to get that training done? Because the times I was in, we just hire some people, or you take another unit who's not training and you use them as what's called Op 4. Those are the guys who play the bad guys. So you don't need to bring this kind of training into America's backyard.
That's right. And we have leaked Army documents, Army training documents that make it perfectly clear that they plan at some point to have martial law right here in the continental United States. There's the leaked 2012 U.S. Army Military Police Training Manual, for example. It's entitled Civil Disturbance Operations, and in it, it describes how soldiers will be ordered to confiscate firearms and kill American dissidents. It says it right there in the Army manual, folks, and it goes on to say that prisoners would be detained in temporary internment camps and re-educated to gain a new appreciation of U.S. policies. Wow. So what do you say, Biggs? Do you think you and I need to be put in internment? We need to be re-educated on U.S. policies?
So is that part of what the Hillary Clinton fun camps are for the adults? Or
maybe
whatever?
That's it. Maybe
that's
camps.
How it's all rolling out. Jade Helm and then the Hillary Clinton fun camps.
Well, it reminds me of George Orwell's 1984. All right, 2 + 2 = 5. And let me tell you something, folks. 1984 wasn't written to be an instruction manual, but that's how these guys are taking it. They're taking it serious. Re-education camps, right? That sounds like something right out of the pages of an Orwellian nightmare. Do you think that they're really prepared to go through something like this?
Well, they do re-education camps, in a sense, in the U.S. Army. When you fail to obey their orders, you decide to think outside the box and actually be a human being who makes his own decisions. You will be removed from a training facility and then taken to a re-education type tent where they kind of hammer down these basics about how you don't need to be thinking, just listen to what you're told, react to what we say, and do that. So that's a lot of things that they use in training in the military already. So I don't see how it would be that difficult for them to, in turn, use that on the civilian population.
Well, it doesn't sound like any kind of fun. And we're going to have more on Operation Jade Helm. Later in the broadcast, Alex Jones is filing a report. You're going to see that later at the end of the broadcast. But right now, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about, I almost called him Sergeant. He doesn't deserve that title.
Yeah,
Bo Bergdahl, the deserter. What's the latest on him?
Well, yesterday we found out that he will be given the charge of desertion and misbehaving before the enemy. Now, what these two charges mean, if he gets charged with it at a court-martial level, is that he could spend to the rest of his life in prison on these charges alone. Now, a lot of people on social media are going around calling for a death penalty, things like that. Now, that can only happen if we have declared war, which we didn't. This is more like a police action, like in Vietnam. So that can't happen. But what can happen is if they find out without a shadow of a doubt that soldiers, the 6 soldiers that did die, that they say right now died looking for him, if they can prove without a shadow of doubt that a soldier died on a mission actually looking for Bo Bergdahl, then he could possibly be given the death penalty at that point in time. But the big thing is the cover-up behind the Obama administration, the lies to get this man and essentially
Well, that's what I want to hear
him.
about. I want to hear about the prisoner swap. What's up with the prisoners? Where are they right now? Are they a threat? What's the deal?
All right, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to take a look at that video right now, which is going to dismantle the Obama administration's lies about essentially what happened with this entire Bo Bergdahl swap. Joe Biggs here with Infowars.com. Now, we now know that Bo Bergdahl has been charged with desertion and misbehaving before the enemy. Now, if convicted at a court-martial, Bo could serve up to life in prison. Now, a lot of people are saying that Bo should get the death penalty for this desertion charge, but for something like that to happen, we would have to have been in a declared war with Afghanistan, which we are not. Now, there is a possibility that Bo could get the death penalty if he is deemed responsible for the loss of life in one of the 6 soldiers who died while supposedly looking for Bo Bergdahl for a long period of time. So until that is proven without, beyond a shadow of a doubt, then that won't happen. But if something like that does get proven, and there is proof that a soldier did lose his life while on a mission that was specifically looking for Bo Bergdahl, then he could possibly face a death penalty.
He was looking for someone who spoke English so he could talk to the Taliban. And when we heard that, it told us, okay, he's actively seeking out the Taliban. Over the next couple months, all the attacks definitely were far more directed. Following his disappearance, IEDs started going off directly under the trucks. They were getting perfect hits every time. Their ambushes were very calculated, very methodical, like they knew what we were going to do.
Now, the big question, though, is should President Obama be blamed for this? And the answer, quite frankly, is yes. He should be blamed for this. Why did they make the soldiers in Bergdahl's unit sign these non-disclosure agreements if he was a hero, if there was nothing to hide about this? This is another Obama deception.
You and lots of other soldiers signed a non-disclosure agreement with the military. I've really never heard of anything like this happening on such a widespread scale for regular Joes as opposed to special forces. Are you worried now that the military is going to try to punish you for talking?
I mean, it's certainly a possibility, but I don't think that I could have continued to go on without being able to share with you and, the people the true things that happen in this situation. Because if you guys aren't made aware of it, it'll just go on. He'll be a hero, and nobody's going to be able to know the truth.
I mean, you mean to tell me that this entire time while they were making this trade with 5 top Taliban insurgents for Bo Bergdahl, that the president didn't have any ounce of a clue about Bo's past and his mishaps in his unit, the times that he's tried to leave, the things that he said?
We heard from our interpreter that the American that was walking around in the Afghan village looking for somebody that spoke English and water also wanted to seek out the Taliban.
Because I find that very hard to believe, seeing that in June of 2012, Michael Hastings had come to that exact same conclusion, that Bo was acting that way, that he was a very young, confused man. In his Rolling Stone article, America's Last Prisoner of War.
I think this is the most significant and undercovered story about the war in Afghanistan from an American perspective. It's a story about the only prisoner of war. Under normal circumstances, he would be a cause célèbre everywhere. But because of the nature of why he left and how he got captured, he's been sort of buried. The Pentagon has intentionally sort of buried his case for a variety of reasons.
I just think it's a little shady that the president is going to act like he didn't know that, and he made these decisions based off the fact that he was just trying to bring another hero home. Now, the president bypassed Congress because he knew they knew about Bo. That's why he snuck past Congress. Then he used the "Leave No Man Behind" slogan.
Because the United States of America does not ever leave our men and women in uniform behind.
Essentially to make Congress look bad because, hey, this guy's a hero. We need to bring him home. It's okay if we trade these 5 top Taliban leaders for him. Congress, you guys are, a bunch of a-holes for not supporting this.
Sergeant Bergdahl wasn't simply a hostage. He was an American prisoner of war, captured on the battlefield. He served the United States with honor and distinction.
The reason Congress didn't want to support it is because they knew all they had to do was read the Rolling Stone article. All they had to do was look at his past and find out that he was the kind of guy who would do something like this. Now, if Bo has a Congressional Medal of Honor, then I'm pretty sure Congress would have been like, yeah, that's fine. We'll approve this Taliban 5 swap. But Bo wasn't. And Congress knew that he was a traitor. And that's why they wouldn't back it. And that's why President had to go behind their back and sneak in for this trade to get these guys. So the question is, should the president be held accountable for this? Should he be the one who gets in trouble for these actions, for trading a traitor for top 5 Taliban leaders who will, some have said, have gone back into the ranks of ISIS and are now fighting people again?
InfoWars Life and InfoWarsLife.com is extremely excited to announce our latest release.